Hello, hobby friends. A friend of mine who works at my local gaming store gave this to me. It was given to him by another wargamer to give to me, since I wasn't there the day he was. The wargamer, I mean. I asked my friend what it was, and he had no idea. Based on the consistency, my best guess was that this was rectangular hot glue. I was very confused. Then, while looking up glue stuff, because as you may or may not know, I like making me some molds, I found a picture of clear rectangles. And what do you know? It's Oyumaru, I think. I've been casting small parts with silly putty and rubber molds for a while now, so I'm going to have an absolute field day with this stuff. Because of its temperature, it stings a bit to hold, but not too much. It feels a bit like a cross between silly putty and rubber. I am ready to mold, and I have a few things I want to copy. With some Gunpla parts cut out, I grab a piece and get to molding. I'm basically just pressing the part in while pushing the sides of the Oyumaru back towards the part. I also press this wonder plastic onto the other parts as well. No need to be neat. These one-part molds are intended for use in making bits for miniature bases and terrain, so I'm just looking to capture some detail and basic geometries. The first mold has a lip over the part, so I snip it off with my expensive nippers. This is totally what they're designed for, right? Time to demold. And you know what? These are looking pretty good. I am having a bit of trouble with this part though, since the mold wrapped around one of the geometries. It's important that the part comes out as easily as possible, especially when filling molds with polymer clay like I do. Speaking of which, let's remove some clay. Unlike the rubber molds I'm used to, these are quite inflexible, and the part is very likely to be deformed when extracting it. Another difference from rubber molds is that the clay has to be extracted while it's still soft, since these molds cannot go into the oven. Let's melt these down for a new batch. I made sure to clean them out with soap first, since uncured polymer clay often leaves behind a residue. Ah, here's something fun I can smush my new toy all over. I went through my built, but not yet painted Gunpla collection for some juicy inner frame bits to copy. And they don't come juicier than the Master Grade Gundam Barbatos. If you wanted to, you could buy this MG Gundam kit and scrap the inner frame for basing bits. $55 for a whole army's worth of miscellaneous mechanical debris. Good thing I have Oyumaru. MG Barbie is safe for another day. Here's another MG for some variety. Specifically, the joint mechanisms of the ankle make this a choice cut of robot. Oh, you can really see the mold separate from the back through the back of the mold. Can't wait to fill this with clay. I've packed some polymer clay into it, and now I'm just peeling away the edges of the mold. This way, I deform the clay as little as possible. The hard part is getting the middle to let go. Now that is one nicely detailed part. This ankle joint also looks pretty good. How about something not mechanical, like this Jotaro Kujo figure? I figure his chiseled face will make for a nice cast. Okay, is it just me, or does it look like he's being strangled or something? And since I've gotten the ball rolling, it's time to mold the ball. Can you tell I'm having a ball? The Master Grade ball is known for having some amazing inner frame detail. I mean, just look at that hexagonal truss with all those cables and junk in between. Let's check on Mr. Kujo. Yup, that's definitely not creepy at all. And this ball mold turned out swell as well. It has a lot of depressed trench-like areas, so I filled those separately before smothering the whole thing in a glob of clay. I'm starting from the center and working my way out to help the clay find and fill every nook. Afterwards, I plane the back of the piece with a hobby knife so the piece can sit in the oven. Also, while it is possible to flatten the back of the piece once baked, it's a lot easier to do so before it hardens. Here's how the Jotaro face turned out. I'm very pleased with the result. It looks like part of a 2-scale statue. And don't worry, I have 5 more where that came from. While I was trying new stuff, I thought I'd try some hot glue. It starts as a goopy liquid and solidifies shortly after, so I figured it might form a decent cast. Well, I shouldn't have, because now it won't separate. Who would have guessed that glue glues things together? This hot glue is a hot mess. It's less peeling apart and more being ripped apart. Luckily, I was able to get the glue off. What I think happened is that the heat from the hot glue softened the surface of the mold, creating a rough texture between the two which locked them together. By the way, the hot glue worked fine on this rubber mold. I now have a trio of soft, flexible ghost grenades. Here are all of the parts I was able to produce. These clay casts took about 2 days to make. I'm happy with the results, sure, but that's a lot of time, and they're not perfect. But they're not supposed to be. These copied components will become a bonanza of bangin' basing bits. In fact, how about I show you a sneak preview? Here are 2 test bases I made on the fly. All I did was shape some clay and press a rock into it to get some rough stone texture. Since plastic melts when it goes into an oven, I need to remove the clay to bake it separately. The duplicated bits will end up getting double baked, but it should be fine. Once the baking was complete, I superglued them back onto their bases. As a final touch, I drilled pupils into the eyes of the face to mimic that of actual statues. Anyway, here they are all painted up. The mechanical part was painted with some metallics, and the face was painted with 3 different values of a warm gray that I mixed. I wasn't sure I could do the face sculpt justice, especially since the source light is shining from in front of the face instead of the usual above, from the face's perspective. However, it turned out better than I thought it would, and I find that I just can't stop looking at it. It also can't stop looking at me. On the other base, I chose not to do a rust effect so it would not interfere with the contrast between the shiny metallic and the matte landscape. Since there was no rust, I decided that this wreckage was a recently crashed rocket engine, and as such, I put a trail of black oil leaking into the sand as a treat for the observant viewer. Opposite of the engine is a rocky plateau, so a miniature with a level stance can stand upright. On the face base, there's no real way for the average miniature to stand flat, so it's going to be a wargaming objective from now on. All of the paints I used are right here. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.